Now that our application is ready, one last thing that we will do is to provide an option at the footer somewhere here for the user to select a different look and feel for the application, but this should happen dynamically, which means that if the user is going to say, this is the theme that I want, from that point until the user changes, the theme should remain the same. And currently we are using a theme called Yeti, and the theme is nothing but the bootstrap.min.css that we have used in the header.jspf. So if I open that, you can see we have given here a link, rel equals to style sheet, type equals to text/css, but importantly, the href corresponds to bootstrap.min.css, which is available under our assets/styles. Obviously, when the user makes a selection, we have to change this .css file. We can make use of the cookies for the same. Currently, I have only one single file here, bootstrap.min.css. Let's add a couple of more by going to this bootswatch.com and then scroll down and choose 3 or 4 different themes of your choice. So I'm going to select this one because that has a totally different look compared to the one that we have. Let's click on download, and it's going to download that with the same name, bootstrap.min.css, but since I already have bootstrap.min.css under our styles, it's giving a different name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this name to bootstrap.united. and then min.css over here. Let's click save. Likewise, I'm going to download superhero. Same way, I'm going to rename this as bootstrap.superhero.min.css. Probably one more. Let's click this pulse, download. Again, I'm going to rename this as bootstrap.pulse.min.css. And one last probably is darkly. Let's click download and change the name to bootstrap.darkly.min.css. Notice for Yeti, we still have the name as bootstrap.min.css. We didn't change this one. So let's first refresh the styles folder so that the list of all the files are visible over here. And we'll rename this bootstrap.min.css to Yeti. So I'm going to press F2 here, or you can right click and then say refactor rename. So I'm going to rename this as bootstrap.yeti.min.css. Let's click OK and quickly change that over here. Otherwise, you will see that the styling would be removed. But this has to be dynamic, which means that we have to use some kind of a JSP expression here to replace this part with the theme that we are using. Let's come back and do that in a bit. But first, let's go to the footer.jspf and add a couple of links over there so that user has an option to change the theme. So I'm going to open the footer.jspf, and this is where I have the copyrights. So I'm going to just press enter, make some room here, give another div, and inside this div I want to have a couple of hyperlinks. So I'm going to go give here a href equals to /theme ? Name equals to, let's give Yeti, and then I'll type Yeti in Pascal case. Let's give a separator. Let's copy this and paste 4 more times and change each one of these to match this particular text over here. So I have darkly Pearl superhero united. So I'm going to change this to darkly. And let me remove the last pipe and also add a text here to say that choose one of the themes. So when the user clicks on this hyperlink, it is supposed to go to a server-side program called theme, supposed to be a servlet, and I don't have any servlet for this URL pattern. But let's give it a try by going to our phone book application, right click, run as, run on server. And in the browser, you can see in the footer, we have something called change theme, Yeti, darkly, superhero, pulse, and united. Clicking on which right now I'm only going to get the 404 because the page doesn't exist corresponding to this URL pattern. So let's go quickly create a servlet. Under the web package, let's right click and say new class. Let's call it as change theme servlet. Superclass is going to be HTTP servlet as usual. Click finish. Add an annotation here for mapping the URL pattern, which is called web servlet. The URL pattern is /theme. Add the default serial version ID as always for the best practice. And the do get, because we are associating this servlet with a hyperlink, so it has to be do get. Get rid of these two lines. And this is where I need to read the name of the theme that user is sending, which is a parameter called name. So let's go here and type string theme equals to request.get parameter of name. And all I have to do now is to store this text in the form of a cookie and send it back. And if you want the cookie to be remembered forever, then probably create a persistent cookie which lasts for a longer period of time, like an year or so, and send it back to the browser. And the header should read this theme and then apply the appropriate styling. That's all what we have to do. So first I'm going to create a cookie. So I'll say cookie c1 equals to new cookie, and the cookie needs to be imported. And the constructor has two parameters. So I'm going to give the theme as the cookie name and theme variable is the value. In case if the user is trying to manually type that over here and that is not one of these, like ASD something, obviously the cookie will be stored with that name, and the header is trying to look for bootstrap.asd.min.css, which doesn't exist. So it is a good idea to check if the theme that is coming here is one of the themes that I already have. So what we do is we're going to create a list of all the themes that we have in the form of a collection. So I'm going to type here arrays.aslist and then give a list of themes that we have. So which is Yeti, United, Superhero, Pulse, and Darkly. List needs to be created of type java.util.list. Let's do the same thing. Before we can assign to this now, I can check if the list contains what the theme that the user is sending, then no problem. But if it's equals to false, that means the user has typed something manually and that is not one of these. And let's assume Yeti is the default one. So I'm going to say here theme equals to Yeti. With this validation, the cookie that contains the theme is always going to be one of these. Let's also add the age of the cookie as an year. So I'm going to say here c1.setMaxAge. So let's say 365 days into 24 hours into 60 minutes into 60 seconds. If you want 10 years, then just multiply this with 10. Next, we have to send this back to the browser by adding that in the response. So I'm going to say here resp.addCookie of c1. After this, you have to render some page back to the user. By default, a servlet doesn't produce any output. So if I just leave that as it is now, the user will get a blank page. Obviously, we don't want that. So let's redirect the user back to the home page by typing resp.sendRedirect to .. And now our servlet is ready. However, in the header, we need to read the cookie that we have stored and then change the link to the bootstrap.min.css. And that's very simple. Let's go to the header.jspf. Instead of hard coding the value 80 here, it has to be an expression, and that expression should check the value of a cookie called theme. If it is there, it should actually put that over here. Otherwise, it should give the default value as 80. So let's replace this with a $curly bracket. Do not give any additional space before and after this expression. Inside that expression, it's fine. So here is where I'll say cookie, which is an implicit object, dot theme, that is the cookie object. So this is the object representing this C1 here. And that has name, value, and couple of other data. But we are interested in the value property of that. But if cookie.theme is null, then we want to display Yeti. Otherwise, this is the value. So I'm going to go add an expression here by typing cookie.theme equals to null question mark. Then I have to type here 80. Otherwise, it's going to be whatever the value of that cookie. Let's save this reload our application by running it again on the server. Let's click darkly. And now you can see the theme has changed. And this is superhero. We have Pulse and we have United. Let's select darkly and then go to login, and you can see that now the browser remembers the user's choice and applies that theme for all the other pages as well. So if I'm going to log in with, let's say, vinod@vinod.co, secret, press enter. Now you can see I'm in the dashboard with the same theme, view all contacts, same theme, view details, same theme. Every page contains the same theme. Now you can also check by closing the browser as well as quitting Google Chrome. That means there is no Chrome running on my computer at this time. If I open Chrome again and visit localhost 8080 phone book, press enter, you can see that it still remembers my previous decision, which is darkly. If I select superhero, exit, close Chrome forever, and then open that again, and then visit localhost 8080 phone book, you can see it remembers the superhero theme as well. You can also highlight the currently selected theme, in this case superhero, by converting the appearance of this link into a button so it stands out compared to the rest of them. And that can be done by dynamically adding a CSS class to each of these hyperlinks. So I'm going to go and add here class equals to btn-link. That is going to be the default for each one of them. So I'm going to copy this and then paste over here. But instead of hard coding link here, we can change this to primary dynamically based on the value of the cookie. And that again can be done using an expression. So I'm going to go and use a $cookie.theme.value. Is it equals to Yeti? Then we need to change this to button. Otherwise, it's going to be link. At this time, our theme is superhero. So obviously the condition here doesn't match because the cookie contains superhero, superhero equals to 80 is false. It's going to be a link. But the same expression I'm going to copy and then paste to each one of them and then make the necessary changes. And this is going to be darkly. The next one is the superhero. Here it's going to be Pulse. So let's change this Yeti to Pulse. And one last is this one, which is going to be called United. Save this. Let's go and delete the cookie from our browser. So I'm going to go to the View, Developer Tools. I need to go to the application. There is cookies, and you can see there is a cookie called theme. And let me remove this and close the browser and reopen the same thing. So I'm going to close it, quit the browser, open Chrome again, and then visit localhost 8080 phone book. Because there is no cookie, you can see that none of the buttons are highlighted, plus it comes back to the Yeti by default. But if I click on darkly here, this is supposed to have been a primary button. Let's see what's the mistake. And you can see that I've given the value here as button. It's all supposed to be primary. So I'm going to use a Command F to search and replace button with primary. There are 5 of them. Let's just click replace find, and I think it's done. Let's click on close, save it. And if I do a reload, you should now see that it's highlighted over here as darkly. I select superhero. That's the primary for the current theme. And here is the Pulse. And here is United. Each one of them will show you it in a different way, but at least it's highlighting the current theme. So this is how 80 would look like, and darkly. So with this now, our new feature for changing the themes dynamically has been completed, and our application is ready for deployment. So in the next lecture, let's create a production build, which is nothing but a WAR file. There are a couple of different mechanisms to do the same thing. And after that, we will deploy this onto a local Tomcat server.